Good afternoon to you, Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here. Hurricane Outlook and Discussion time. It's about 5:50 Eastern Time, and let's take a look at what's going on with Maria especially, and what's left of Jose here just spinning around, mostly a low cloud swirl, and the last advisory has been issued on Jose from the Hurricane Center, and it's just going to slowly dissipate, I guess, into nothingness eventually. And then here is Maria moving north-northwest now after passing very close to the Turks and Caicos, and we will be watching this very closely to see how close up it comes to North Carolina. Maybe it wiggles off this way some, maybe it comes back more, and then it slows down, it looks like in the modeling, and then tries to take off. That's generally the idea anyway. We'll take a look at some thoughts on that in a moment. Close up here, or a different perspective anyway, of Maria. And you can see it's trying to develop an eye again. There is some southwesterly shear, but it's not destructive just yet in terms of really blowing the cloud tops away from the center. But, maybe 20 knots or so. And as it moves from south to north, it kind of negates that shear just a little bit. And you can see the eye wall is trying to reform, right in there just a little bit. There's the eye, the center of circulation. Very large, expansive area of clouds. And that has resulted, of course, in tremendous flooding here in Puerto Rico, even long after the eye passed over. Even some flooding here in the Dominican Republic. And Maria definitely leaving a legacy of destruction and, unfortunately, the loss of life. So looking at the 5-day forecast from the National Hurricane Center, just enough of a tick to the west to bring the western edge of the cone of uncertainty over the North Carolina Outer Banks. And I think that we will see more of that over the next couple of days as the pattern is rearranging itself now that we are losing the influence of Jose up here, maybe building the ridge over the western Atlantic a little bit stronger, and it looks like it's going to try to maybe bridge over the top up here and block Maria from just coming up and out, might send it more closer yet to the North Carolina Outer Banks. It is not a done deal, and I've been talking about that. It's a small percentage in terms of having a direct impact, but it's not zero, and I just can't emphasize that enough. So let's look at what the Euro showed today, the European model, and then we're going to read the discussion on Maria, and you'll see how everything is mentioned. So here's the Ecmwf, and this is all the way out at day 4, and you can see the position of Maria out here well to the southeast of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, and still a formidable looking hurricane in the model. Still probably a category 2 or 3 at that point. Wouldn't surprise me. Here's the day 4 position from the GFS. If we compare the two, there's not much difference overall. Anything drastically noticeable. The GFS maybe has just a little bit more of this ridge trying to nose in up here than does the Euro. See what I mean? If I take it and go back to the European and then compare that to the GFS. But it is at day 5 that we see some fairly large changes here. So this is the European at day 5, and it's moving basically due north. And if we compare that to the global forecast system, also at day 5, it's more to the north and west and a little bit stronger. And so, it's not that much of a big deal. It's not like it's 200 miles, but this is all going to start to matter, and especially considering that we're still talking 5 days out. And there's enough error in the modeling, the guidance, the Hurricane Center forecast, and things that can happen with the atmosphere that any more significant correction to the west with Maria, let's say that it's just a little bit over this way with the center of circulation, then you're talking about hurricane force winds buffeting the southeastern part of the Outer Banks of North Carolina. In other words, it's not going to take much over the next 5 days. Let's just say that we gain a half a degree of longitude of westward movement each day for the next 5 days. All right? So 4 days would be 2 degrees, 5 days would be 2.5 degrees, and a degree of longitude is about 60 miles wide, roughly, between points. And so, 2 degrees, 2.5 degrees longitude farther to the west would put it about right there, roughly. Okay? And the UK Met model, which I can't display, I don't know where to find it to display it like this, it's also to the west at about 72.9 and 30 5.2, I think was on its 5-day position. And that is, about right in here, roughly. So, for the most part, models that are not the Ecmwf had a little bit of a westward adjustment today. And we can read about that in the forecast discussion. This paragraph talks about the intensity. And basically speaking, Maria is a large, sprawling hurricane. It's going to fluctuate between Category 2 and 3 probably. Don't be shocked if it briefly reaches Category 4 for a bit. Sometimes that happens. It finds a window of opportunity where the winds are favorable and it taps into some upper ocean heat content and everything fires on all cylinders and boom, it really strengthens quickly. But this is the paragraph that's most important, I think, in terms of steering. And it's mentioned explicitly that the new track models have shifted west significantly. See, it says it right there. This is not me writing this. This is the forecaster, Robert Berg. I know Robbie, and as I said before, I don't mean to make it sound like I'm like best friends with these people, but I have met them at various conferences, and you get to know them on a first name basis. So that's why I say that. But anyway, forecaster Berg is what he says right here, and they have significantly shifted west on this cycle, leaving the interpolated version of the forecast by itself on the eastern edge. And then it says, oddly enough, the new Euro went from being on the west side to the east side. So we had a little flipping. But this shows you right here, this is it, right there. I can't circle it enough. That spells out, all this right here that forecaster Berg wrote. That's all the uncertainty. This is going to wiggle and wobble, but if it's gaining longitude towards the west each day, even a half a degree, a quarter degree, whatever the net gain is, and you average it out, so we call it the mean gain over the next 5 days, if that's 2.5 degrees west, then this comes very close to the North Carolina Outer Banks, and we could have a big problem up there. People live there, there's businesses there. It's after Labor Day, so the tourism season is not as big, but the Outer Banks are part of the United States. Let's don't forget that. And as fragile as they may be, and the erosion issues notwithstanding that are always there, we need to consider that. And then maybe even points north of Virginia Capes, and maybe even as far south as some of the southern portions of the Outer Banks, or what we call the Crystal Coast. That's a stretch, but some of the modeling does suggest maybe as far south as Atlantic Beach, Morehead City, and it's really stretching it to consider Wilmington and Wrightsville Beach. But again, 5 days from now, 200-mile average track error, the models are shifting to the west for the time being, and there's no trough coming like, where it's a race against Maria and the trough. It's more of just the pattern shift, and when Maria sort of turns eastward by the natural progression of things in the atmosphere, it's not over. All right, so there you go. I've stated my case on that, showing you the evidence, and we are starting to gain a few percentage points towards that it might impact, is what it comes down to directly. Okie dokes. All right, that's all I got for now, and that'll be it for today. Everybody have a good Friday evening. Go and do your usual Friday evening stuff, and I'll be back during the day tomorrow. We'll have more on this, and we'll see what the overnight models show. Maybe they'll shift east, and something will come up, and that's it. It's out of here, no problem. But if not, I want to make sure that people are aware and that they don't just see what they see on television with a quick sound bite that Maria is forecast to turn east, and then that's all they know about it. And then the next thing you know, in 3 days, there's a hurricane watch. Can't have that. We just have to make sure that people are aware. That's it. All right? Have a great rest of your Friday. Thanks, as always, for tuning in. We got a lot more hurricane season to go, by the way, which we'll start talking about on Monday. Yes, there's other things. I was almost ready to sign off, and I kind of forgot. There are other things out there. Lee came back, but it's out in the open ocean. Really not even worth talking about. And yes, there is evidence that the Western Caribbean will become busy over the next couple of weeks. But you know what? One thing at a time. At least right now, when nothing is imminent except Maria. All right, now I'm done. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks for watching. I'll have more for you around noon tomorrow.